Welcome. You're watching Rugby with Rifle, a podcast about all things rugby and life, with your host, Danny Pabone and Rifle Scudder.
Welcome to another episode of Rugby with Rifle, a podcast that's all about rugby and life. So today we have two very, very special guests, and I like to joke around because actually this is our second time having these first guests. Me being a novice podcaster, we recorded these two gentlemen, but we didn't have sound. So this is take this is take number two. So Rifle, would you like to introduce our two very special guests today?
Sure. Good evening, Danny. That would be very nice. Yes, so for the first time, we have actual guests on our podcast, and we are so excited to have them, to hear the questions that we're going to ask and the answers we're going to get. So welcome, Mr. Earl Davis and Kevin Smith. Both of them are part of Edgewater Education, and they are going to be our guests for tonight. So we are thrilled to have you guys here. Welcome, and please just enjoy your time with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
So yes, thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us tonight and being our first guests. We're recording this video 6 days before Christmas, so we have our holiday gear on today. This podcast. These two gentlemen are very near and dear to my heart, and Rifles as well. These two gentlemen have taught us about investment and the world of investment pretty much for the past 7 years. And I've been blessed to stay at Earl's house many, many times over the past 7 years. So it's been really great. And Earl and Kevin, please tell us about anything that you would like to speak about, how you got involved with the NRFL and your journey through the world of investment. So I guess, Earl, we can start with you.
Well, I would like to do that, but I'd like to, I think Kevin will follow my lead here. We'd like to flip the script a little bit and talk about you guys just for a second,
Okay.
because the world may not know how incredible Danny Pavone and Rifle Scutta are. So first met Danny a long time ago, where he would drive from New Jersey down to Georgia, and we would have conferences to help people how to learn how to take care of their finances. And he just keep coming down, and we've become really good friends. And I think it's like 13 trips you've made driving to and from.
Give or take, I've lost count.
So what I want you to know is that Danny is, when he decides he's going to do something, it's really good. I remember just even if it's one little thing, so like you said, it's about rugby, about life. So one thing about Danny, one time he drove down to spend a whole weekend, and then we spent a few minutes together. He just wanted to ask me one question. He says, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I remember my answer says, what we're looking for. And I'm not going to finish that story, but that, the fact that I think he got the answer to that question when he knew what I was looking for the big picture. It gave me a lot of confidence. And so now it's expanded in areas like rugby. Rifle, my friend Rifle here. First time I met Rifle, I was standing on stage speaking. He was in the middle row. I'd seen him before, and he's pretty athletic, put it that way. And I remember being on stage talking about a particular topic, and the more I talked, the angrier Rifle got. And but the summary of that is, I was prepared for a fight because I thought me and Rifle were going to have to, and I knew I was going to lose the fight. But when we finally met, he stuck out his hand and said, "Thank you." and he said, thank you for what you do and what you've done. And we've been friends ever since. And his rifle, um, I didn't know he was into rugby, but um, he's very passionate, as you have seen from the other podcasts. So we're just blessed to be here. So I just wanted, before we talk about rugby, wanted to talk about these two guys here. They're amazing men. And I think I want to take credit for your friendship, because if it hadn't been for all of us, you guys may have never met. So, Kevin, what would you like to say about these two incredible men?
Oh, just you know, there's so many people I've met over the years through teaching investing, and the vast majority of them talk. They say what they want to do, and they talk about what they want to do, and they don't go out and actually do the work. They don't go out and actually take the steps to do what they need to do to make something a reality in their lives and to change their lives. And there's so much we could talk about, but the thing that just really I love about these two guys is we began talking about a podcast for rugby because of an investment that Earl and I are involved with. And we'll talk more about that today. But as soon as they started talking about it, all of a sudden the plans were in the works. They were taking steps. They were actually taking action on the idea to put it into effect. And here we are, podcast number what?
This is 14.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's just amazing. And this was in my head, it was just an idea a few months ago. And
Yeah.
here they are actually going out and doing it. And one person can't go out and do everything, but as a tribe, all the great ideas that come out of that tribe, individuals with the gifts in those areas and the passion, back to what you said, Earl, and the passion these two guys have for the game of rugby, or the sport of rugby, is just amazing. And that's what you really need from the people that are going to go out and make it a reality. You can't just go, oh, I'll take that and I'll go run with it. These guys love it. They absolutely love it. And you can hear it in how they talk about it, how they teach about it. And I just love that. And thank you for having us on and inviting us to be a part of it. So very exciting.
Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
kind
Thank you,
words.
guys. Yes. And that we did not pay these two gentlemen to say all those things. Just in case anybody's wondering. So yeah, the you the one thing, and I hope you two could share a little bit about your background and story. Um, the the one thing that are similar to both of you is at one point in your lives, you had hit what most people would consider rock bottom. And and here you are today, invested in a professional rugby team, a rugby league, I should say, known as the National Rugby Football League. And that's why we invited you guys here today. But and I guess we could start with Kevin, and then Earl could follow. Uh, Kevin, can you just share? I just love your story, and I've heard it so many times, and I could hear it 1,000 more times, and I'll still put a smile, and just it really inspires me. So, can you just touch upon how you got into investing and your journey ever since?
Yeah, sure. I honestly, wow, I didn't expect we were going here today. I thought we'll talk investing
Yes.
and rugby,
I
but
was going to say his thing. He threw the curve back at us, didn't he?
Sorry, I just had to. Sorry for
no, but
throwing the
it's
curveball.
I will never hesitate to go back and remember where we came from because it keeps you humble. It keeps you reminded of how difficult life can be and how far we've come. And the way you phrased it, it's like absolutely amazing to me that at one time, two single dads, one living in his car, the other living in someone's room in their basement because he couldn't afford rent. And we're trying to find a door that'll open for us, just knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking. And, just like you said, laying there on the mat, taking the blows. And yes, Earl and I both, and I'll let him share more about his story, but just finding a way to move forward just by being someone sharing their knowledge with us. And it wasn't even like a mentorship where somebody's right there by your side. It was just us taking the action when we heard something that we thought we could be passionate about, we knew deep down we could do. And we took the efforts to go learn that information, then to go back like you guys are doing with the podcast and put it into effect. I had to sell a canoe on Craigslist just so I had enough money to open a brokerage account and just do what you got to do, practicing at 1 in the morning when the kids are asleep and the groceries are bought and the bills are what paid you, what ones you can pay, and figuring this stuff out and little by little putting one trade on and then being able to learn enough to put two trades on and saving money left and right and then having enough to put three in, and you just keep moving forward and adding to your knowledge and practicing and getting better. And just like any professional sport, right? That's what a rugby player does. They just practice and practice. If you bleed and practice, it's that much less that you'll have that, be able to do it in your sleep in the game when it's a reality, when it counts. And so we just practiced and did the work. And the work, it's not easy. I won't say anything is easy that's worth going after, but it was fairly straightforward for someone like me to be able to understand and figure out. It's not rocket science. And just going out there and learning what I could about the world of investing and trading options, and it radically changed my life to, like you said, Danny, to be able to be an owner of a professional rugby league is just something my mind never comprehended. Never in a million years would I have dreamt that up. But that's been the journey, and I'll keep it at that because I could talk forever on it. But go ahead, Earl.
Yeah, Danny. Well, you just scratched the surface there that I haven't thought about for a while. So I'm trying to got to keep it short. I like how you started this. This podcast is about rugby, but it's also about life
Yeah.
and how it intertwines. And so you had rock bottom. For me, that was 1995. I was 35 years old. And rock bottom, which means before you hit rock bottom, you had to have some sort of success.
Absolutely.
And God has a way of doing that to you. If you think you're successful, big-headed as we are, but you're going down the wrong path, so to speak, most of us aren't willing to give that up easily. So sometimes it has to be taken from us so that we can start afresh with a new set of, okay, I wasn't supposed to be here not having a home of my own. So how am I going to get back? And that's when new doors open, as Kevin was talking about. And one of the doors that opened in that time frame was the idea that I could become an investor, not seriously, but it's just, and not because I want to be an investor like a textbook investor. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you go apply for a job and they tell you you're overqualified, but you still got to pay the bills. And you start wondering, what can I do? And some of the things I was thinking about doing were actually not legal at the time. They're legal now. Pharmaceutical companies do it now. And it's but back then it wasn't legal, so I couldn't do that. And then somebody introduced me to the fact, you know what? If you have a computer, you can tap right into the US marketplace where all the money is and extract what you need to live. That, what? I said, yeah, let me show you how you can use technology to bypass a financial advisor, bypass education, go right to where the money is. And to me, dollars in the US marketplace are like drops of water in the ocean that you see behind me. It's an abundance. And so I started learning to change my attitude from scarcity to abundance, and it was a process because doors were opening to allow me to think differently. Because everyone that was around me thought in scarcity terms, and that wasn't helping my current situation.
Yeah.
So, and on the outside, look good, smell good, but I'd hit rock bottom, and inside I had changed. I said, "There's got to be something better." And it's about that time when Kevin and I, we kind of talked about it. He and I happened to be in the same room at the same time, even though we probably didn't meet that time. but we were in the same rooms at the same time looking for the same thing. And that was 2012, 2013, somewhere back this, over 10 years ago.
Yep.
So to your point, Kevin, we both hit a bottom spot, but where we are now, we never would have been here if we had stayed on that other track. If we hadn't hit rock bottom, we wouldn't be where we are now, which is further along than we would have been on that other track. So if you don't mind me throw that life lesson in there.
Well, and tie it back to now what we do is like a retracement, right? We had to retrace
It
back
is
to
a
the
retracement.
who we got, right? And then to take off like a rocket. But you're
This is a rugby channel, boys. People don't understand a retracement. When you say that, they want to know how hard you tackle and
pitch
how
it back to
you
the
ball
kicker
behind the
so the
line.
kicker can send it down the majority of the field. How's
Okay,
There you
that?
go.
here's the retracement rifle in rugby terms. You cannot throw the ball forward in rugby. You always have to retrace it to the one behind you, but everything moves forward, even though it looks like it's going backwards. That's a
There you
retracement.
go.
That we
Bam.
can understand.
Nice. Nice.
Yes. And Kevin and I have had the privilege over the years, we've probably talked to thousands of people about trading and investing, which comes out to the point here. It's so unique. How did the rugby come on our radar? It just happens, again, this technology called Zoom. I was on a Zoom meeting with a guy that you guys know, Michael Stumball. And just like Kevin's got right there, I'm talking to him about trading and investing some things, and I see he's got a rugby ball behind him. I said, "What's that?" And he got excited, and I got I got mine too. See where can we go? Oh well,
Put it
yeah,
on your chest.
there we go. There we
There
go.
you go.
And so this is the National Rugby Football League, and this is a seed bag. Kevin's got his seed bag, and Michael Stumble had one of these. I said, "What's that?" And so he reached in and pulled out the seed, and it was the rugby ball. And we started talking about how he came across that, and I says, "Hey, I'm interested in that," because he was talking about they're looking for investors, and I said, "Well, and he said, "I can make a phone call for you and set up a meeting." And I thought, this is a National Rugby Football League that's going to fill the gap that's missing in the United States about professional sports. It's a contact sport. It's a manly sport. It's a womanly sport. It's something that everyone can do. So the more I studied about it, I want to invest in this startup league. I like investing in startup companies that are run by the founder, CEO of the company. So I thought that I was going to have a Zoom meeting with somebody way, way down the food chain. But what turned out is when I got on a Zoom meeting, I'm going to share my screen real quick, if that's okay. I'm going to request. Can I share my screen? Okay. And so when I got on the Zoom meeting, this is Michael Clements. He's a founder and CEO of the National Rugby Football League, and this is Steve Ryan, the managing director for the entire league. So that was an incredible conversation. And so that was the next step. And when they were interviewing me, I said, because it was an interview. You can't just walk in to be an investor in the league. It's an interview. And when he said, "Well, tell me about yourself," I said, "Well, why don't you join a class I have? I teach in Edgewater education. If you come sit in the class, then that tells more about what we do than me trying to, toot my own horn." I didn't think these guys were going to show up. But sure enough, the next day they showed up in class and they sat in the back. I mean, on Zoom, they didn't say anything. And I have a habit at the end of each class saying, "Does anybody have anything to say?" And at the time, I didn't know who Michael Clements really was.
It's 6 o'clock.
But what he said was, if somebody had wrapped their arms around me, Earl, like you're wrapping your arms around the people in your class, I would have given Elon Musk a run for his money. I'm thinking, yeah, right, to myself. Turns out he's that guy. So I want to put a plug in for rugby, the sport. But what's going to make this rugby league different in the US is the U.S. sports professionals have degenerated into trash talking, me, 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 me. When I played sports, it was all about the team. Now it's definitely about individuals, even if it's a team sport. And so I asked Michael Clemens one thing, and it says, when you bring rugby to the US, are you going to preserve the traditions of the sport? Or are you going to make it Americanized? I think, Kevin, I almost lost the opportunity to invest when I asked that question because the look on his face, like, how dare you think I'm going to do that? And so that picture was taken, as an investor, I flew out to Minnesota to meet with him. That was the headquarters of the National Rugby Football League. I went out to meet with them and met with the founder and the CEO and the managing director, stayed out there for 2 days. And you know what? As you guys were talking about, can you imagine the commission of the National Football League saying, hey, we want you to invest a few tiny pennies, but if you come out, we'll spend time with you, explain what we've got going on? That's not happening. But in this National Rugby Football League, that's the leadership that we get to tie into. And so what I always do with the investments is if it's worthy, I tell folks about it that I care about. And Kevin was one of the first people I talked about becoming an investor. So I'll turn it over to Kevin from there.
Wow. Well, like you, Earl, it was so exciting to hear about the opportunity. I had just read a book, The Holy Grail of Investing, Tony Robbins' last book, I think. And one of the things that he was stressing in that book is one of the greatest opportunities for private investment for the average person in today's world is in professional sports. And he said that, and I thought, well, they're looking to build a new or start a new NHL team in Atlanta. They had one many, many years ago. They're building a stadium up the road from my house, and I heard they want to anchor it with an NHL team. So I made some calls, got a hold of the guy who's building the partnership that wants to lobby for this team. The minimum buy-in was $1 million. And I said, well, that sounds wonderful. However, I'm going to have to pass right now. I don't have that lying around, not yet. But I had thought about it and that just slammed shut. And then we get talking about this, and I thought, I used to watch rugby when I was growing up all the time. I don't know where to watch it anymore. I haven't been able to find it anymore. Now that I'm, streaming and just a whole different world of entertainment now. And so I got to thinking about it, and when Earl shared it, and my wife and I talked about it and said, we seriously need to look at this. This may be an opportunity to do the same thing that we were reading about, but do it at a level that we can actually participate instead of a league that is decades down the road. Not, NHL's 100 years down the road, football's 50, 60. They're already at a level the average person can't be an owner. But a new league of a sport that is a long time coming. So the questions that I think we're going to talk about next started coming into my mind and doing some research. And so one of the things I did is I joined Earl at one of the meetings with those two gentlemen when they were traveling through Atlanta. My wife and I sat down with them.
Can I show that picture?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We sat down with them at dinner, which again was like, I can sit down with the commissioner of the league and the founder, CEO, the president. I mean, it was just amazing. Yeah. And brought a friend. That it was just an intimate setting to discuss what they're doing and Earl's involvement at that point, and now what can we do to participate? And I sat there and used something I had learned also from the Tony Robbins book, but also from my own experience in starting a fund. I thought maybe we can create a partnership that these guys would allow because the threshold of investing was so high. What about the average people that aren't quite there yet? Can we get together as a group and pool together as a group, and then the group or the partnership be the investor? And they went back to their headquarters, talked to their legal counsel, and came back and said, we can do that. And so I came involved and got involved by creating a partnership to invest in the league. And it's just been tremendous. In fact, I talked to them, when was it, Monday? So lots going on. Anyway, I'll stop there because again, there's so many stories, but that's how I got tied into it.
Can I piggyback on the partnership theme there?
Yeah.
because we enjoy partnerships as business owners. And when these guys sat in my class, both of them stayed there the whole time. And we started discussing a partnership where the information that I was giving that Michael Clemens had said was so valuable, I took an opportunity and says, well, what if we could take this education on personal finance and financial intelligence and introduce it to the newcomers who are coming into the league? Because these young men and women, because there's going to be a women's league too, they need to know how money works so they don't get taken advantage of.
Right.
And we started that conversation a couple of years ago. So as Kevin was talking about, what amazed me is somebody at this level, again, they're traveling to Atlanta, and we met them for dinner, and they're open to talking with partnerships. You know, Kevin and I will both say, we're just normal people. We're not, but they're willing to listen to our ideas and say, yes, let's see how we can work together.
Yep.
And over the last couple of years, that partnership is getting closer and closer together. So from investing in a league, that opportunity is there to me be able to teach what I teach to a whole new group of folks in a formal way. This is life, is that in the field, we on the field and off the field. This is all about partnership and working together, and everybody wins.
Yep.
If you do it right.
Yep.
That's a great point, because you guys now are talking about money, and Kevin, you said it costs $1 million to just invest in what you were talking about. So talking about the money, if we talk about the NFL or the NHL, NBA, I mean, anything that has a national in front of it in America, I'm not from here, I'm from South Africa, but the money in sport here is astronomical. It is mind-boggling to think that someone who throws a ball can get $6 million, not even playing a game, just because he's in the team and he's injured. So my question to you guys is, how can, because we're just starting out with the NRFL, and we don't have the money yet that these other national sports organizations have. Is it possible, or is it just a dream to think that the NRFL can actually become competitive? Does my question make sense, talking about the money of the rugby compared to football or basketball or hockey or anything else? Because we are brand new and we want to take this and we want to introduce it into America. Can that really happen with the money that we have versus the money that they already own?
Right. Earl, you want to go?
You go first. I'll go next.
Okay. So that's a fantastic question. And it's one of the first ones I looked at as well, as how are these guys going to compete with these other leagues? And without getting into too much detail, I looked at the growth rate of some of these leagues, and some of the biggest, including the NFL, are actually in decline. And others are financially structured in a way or have taken on so much debt, they're not stable. So there's starting with a clean slate, that's a huge advantage, right? Starting from the get-go with a certain business model versus something 100 years old that's buried in debt and is in decline with their revenues. So that was one thing I was very encouraged with and thought about, okay, for me, again, I can't afford the one that's the mega multi-billion organization already, but what about the one that has the potential to steal some of their viewership, their fans, bring them on to their league and their sport, and are growing? And it's like Apple comes in and goes after Microsoft. There's good, healthy competition. But the main thing I discovered that opened my eyes to why I came to the conclusion the NRFL has tremendous ability to succeed in spite of the other major pro sports in the United States is that they're not trying to compete. They're not trying to go after them as a sports league. What they're designed as, when you look at their structure and how they're marketing and how they're looking at making money, bottom line, is as a sports and media entertainment organization. It's not about the game. It's about the relationships, the players, and the experience of the fans all revolving around the team and the players. So they're thinking about how you're experiencing the game, whether you're in person. And if you're in person, you might have a concert that goes with it. You might have, a cooking exhibition or barbecue in the same vicinity. It's a whole experience. And so they're looking at it in today's modern world where these other organizations are trying to adapt. And many of them are struggling. They're stuck in an inside stadium or arena. They can't really break out and do greater things. They show up, they do their thing, and they're gone. This is about may show up early, kind of like a college football where you've got the tailgating, you got the everybody hanging out and talking. You may have the radio shows broadcasting all around. So they're looking at the experience that the fans are going to be involved with, as well as the online or watching experience from television or streaming. And they're looking at monetizing not just traditional ticket sales, they're monetizing everything down to sports betting and NFTs. And I mean, there's just so much that they have deep, deep plans for. But all of it is revolving around the experience, the story, and the people that are involved with it, both in the teams and the fans, and bringing those two together. I won't get ahead of myself into something else we might talk about, but the other thing that to me was a huge opportunity to bring this beyond just a single game on a weekend with ticket sales is they're looking at these players and building that relationship between the players and the fan base through a reality show and recording and going with these players from their recruitment through their training, all that they do to become the great players that they will become in this new league, and showing the fan base, bringing them along in a show instead of, maybe a player tweets out something and you got to follow their tweet. I mean, it's a much more deep relationship to bring those players into the world of the fans. And I just don't see very many, if any, of these other leagues that far ahead into the future of sports and entertainment, which I'm in that world. That's what I do as a day job. And it's changing radically. It's not about you buy a ticket, you show up, and you watch a game and you leave anymore. People aren't willing to pay what those tickets now cost, and that's where they're struggling. They're hitting a wall with that. Where the NRFL they're just being revolutionary about how they're thinking about that experience and how they're going to bring this, not only that the integration of the fans and the players, but in every aspect of the experience, all the way around the entire organization. Again, I could talk so much on this stuff. I'll stop there and let you add to it, Earl, or bring up something totally different I hadn't thought of.
Well, that's what makes us we've taught together so often, we get to come at different angles and arrive at the same conclusion. So I'm going to take some of the things that Kevin talked about because I agree with him and add a few different things. The big thing about the National Rugby Football League, as Kevin said, it's not a traditional sports league. It is a media and an entertainment company. And that's a whole different model. Now I got to take two steps back is why I think it can succeed, because the founder and CEOs, as you get to know them as we have, this isn't their first attempt to do it. There's this idea you have to do something and succeed the first time when it comes like this. No, as you do something, you find what doesn't work. Do you have enough fortitude to back up and try a different path? Another back up another path. And these guys, their first play at it was to go to England and actually buy the oldest rugby team on the planet.
Right.
And they said, no, this isn't going to work. We have to do something else. So do I think eventually the revenue is going to be there? Yes, because the founder, CEO, and his managing director have tried a couple of different avenues, testing to see what worked and what didn't work. When they locked on what will work, that's when we happen to come on board. So the reason I believe that because of Michael Clements and Steve Ryan. Second, is because it's a media entertainment company, which, as Kevin said, other revenue streams. Third is the availability of players in this league, because you got college players that just didn't quite make it, but they're at their peak. and they want to play. Backed up by the fact that rugby, according to what I've learned from you guys, is one of the biggest club sports in the US. So that the amount of talent that's available waiting to be discovered is overripe. And as these guys said, in the US, we have the best stadiums in the world. And so they'll have to build a stadium. There's no expense for building stadiums. They're already built. And because sidebar, I'm not a Taylor Swift fan because I'm not, but you know what I know that
You're not a Swiftie? I didn't guess you.
no, I know you probably missed that one,
You
but
didn't want to pay $500 for a ticket, Earl?
but from a business standpoint, around the globe, one entertainer packs stadiums.
Yeah.
And it was not and the folks went because they were surrounded by people like them.
Like by name.
So with media and entertainment, isn't, that whole tour was a media and entertainment tour that's now affecting professional sports. So these guys were ahead of the game going to the media and entertainment business to be able to impact a sport. And you know what? I believe that their ticket prices are not going to be as high as regular football. So they're going to make up for the volume by lower tickets to fill the stadiums with more people. I think we're going to have packed out stadiums to watch rugby for people that couldn't afford um, professional sport tickets. And I'm willing to bet there's more people like me that when we played sports, it was about teamwork. It was about camaraderie. It was about the sportsmanship, the games, the lessons of life. So if rugby can bring that back to the US at that professional level, and we get athletes who, as Rifle told me when I started watching the sport, that on the field, they're very intense competitors. But after the game, can go to the bar and have a beer together and talk about, hey, what a good game you played. And actually seeing in some of the documentaries we've seen that one team complimenting a spar, one team complimenting the other team's player. They show them on the field going at each other, and then afterwards they say, "Man, that was a good hit." If we can bring that attitude back to sports in America, maybe, and we will succeed. It gives a path to another sport, and maybe it will bleed off into the rest of the population that we can work together, not against each other. We don't have to trash talk. We can be gentlemen and ladies. And for all those reasons, I think the sport of rugby in the US won't be so much about big contracts as it will be about being a part of something big. And then the last thing that is key that you may not see on the front end, but because Kevin and I are investors, you can watch Kevin as I say this. One of the things that I heard them say was that they really wanted, if somebody played the sport of rugby, that they should have an avenue to some raise to the ranks and somehow be an owner of a team one day if they wanted to. And when I heard that, I said, I don't think so. I mean, that sounds good. It's a nice soundbite. But after hanging out with these guys, they really mean that. To the point that Kevin and we are owners. We're part owners of the National Rugby Football League. And it's not, and that's why I want to show you the picture. It wasn't an owner like, okay, yeah, we got a check mark because we got a black guy and a white guy and they're, they're from Atlanta, check the box. No, when they came through Atlanta, they let us know they're coming and we had dinner with them as owners talking to the founder CEO with our families.
Yeah.
So I will say, as somebody gets into the sport as an athlete, they may not be just for the big dollars. It's going to be nice dollars, but the idea to have a path to ownership will be a very attractive force. And I think that message, if we can get it out, is also a very attractive force. I mean, the guys that stood up in the penthouse really care about the guys on the field. And it's the guys on the field saying, yes. How do you know? Well, we went to dinner with them. Is that so Ralph, I hope it's saying, is there potential for this thing to grow? Yes. But before it to grow, it's got to take root. And what you guys do with your podcast are helping it take root. And Kevin, I just thought of one other thing, because looking at Rifle here, I bet if I asked Rifle, would you rather watch the Springboks or the Green Bay Packers? Who would you pick?
Oh, good. I'm not even going to answer that, Earl.
That's
Also
insulting.
Springboks.
Well, exactly.
But this is
Well,
green and gold. These are the Springbok colors.
okay, it was just but what I'm saying is that proves my point. There's enough folks from other nations in the US, given the choice of watching a rugby match or watching a professional American sport, they're going to watch rugby.
Most certainly.
And so if
Yeah.
no Americans at all participated, we still fill the stadiums with everyone else who's been dying to get their sport played on this continent. So there's multiple ways that this is going to work, but it's like planting something. If we don't get the roots deep enough, it's got to take root. And that's where you guys are doing amazingly well. We're doing the best we can, but the more we get the root planted, then when it starts growing, I think it will replace everything else.
Thank you for watching this episode of Rugby with Rifle. Remember to press the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet to support this podcast.